Ladies and gentlemen, life is full of lessons. And one of the toughest lessons is recognizing when someone, especially a man, uses you. But let me tell you, there's power in this experience if you're willing to learn from it. Understanding your value is the foundation of self-respect and the key to building relationships that uplift rather than diminish you. It begins with a shift in mindset, a realization that your worth is not determined by anyone else, but is an intrinsic part of who you are. Rohn once said, "You don't get paid for the hour, you get paid for the value you bring to the hour." This truth doesn't just apply to work, it applies to life, love, and how we allow others to treat us. To truly understand your value, you must first identify what makes you unique. Your talents, kindness, intellect, and even your struggles contribute to the mosaic of your identity. These elements create a person who is irreplaceable. Think about the time and effort you invest in others. That energy is a reflection of your value. When you recognize how much you give, you start to realize that not everyone deserves your generosity. Being selective about where you invest your time and energy isn't selfish, it's smart. After all, your value isn't diminished because someone fails to see it. It's their vision that's flawed, not your worth. Understanding your value also means recognizing the subtle ways in which others may attempt to undermine it. Manipulation and exploitation often disguise themselves as charm or affection, making it easy to overlook the signs of being used. If someone takes advantage of your kindness, it's not a reflection of your flaws, but rather their failure to honor your worth. However, the responsibility to stop this behavior lies with you. Rohn often said, "You cannot change the seasons, but you can change yourself." Similarly, you cannot control how others act, but you can control what you tolerate. Another aspect of understanding your value is learning to listen to your intuition. Deep down, we often sense when someone isn't treating us right, but we sometimes ignore these signals in the hopes of salvaging a relationship. We make excuses for bad behavior, convincing ourselves that things will get better if we're just a little more patient, a little more understanding. But this approach often leads to a cycle of giving and sacrificing without receiving the same in return. When you truly understand your value, you don't settle for relationships where the scales are unbalanced. You understand that mutual respect and appreciation are non-negotiable. It's also important to understand that your value isn't tied to external validation. In today's world, it's easy to measure worth by the attention or approval we receive from others. Social media, for example, can trick us into thinking that likes, comments, or followers define our significance. But real value isn't about how others perceive you, it's about how you perceive yourself. Rohn taught that true change begins internally. To grasp your value, you must cultivate a strong sense of self-worth, independent of anyone else's opinions. This requires introspection, self-compassion, and the courage to stand alone if necessary. When you don't understand your value, you become vulnerable to being used because you seek validation in all the wrong places. People who exploit others often target those who haven't yet embraced their worth. They know how to play on insecurities and make you feel that their approval is something to be earned. But when you know your value, you don't need to chase anyone's approval. You understand that being worthy isn't something you achieve, it's something you already are. This mindset becomes a protective shield, helping you avoid situations and relationships that don't serve your best interests. One of the most powerful ways to solidify your understanding of your value is to set goals and work toward them. Rohn emphasized the importance of personal development, stating, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job." This philosophy applies to relationships as well. When you're actively growing, pursuing your passions, enhancing your skills, and striving to be the best version of yourself, you naturally attract people who respect and admire you. Growth reinforces your self-worth, reminding you that you don't need anyone else to complete you. Recognizing your value also requires you to stop comparing yourself to others. In relationships, especially, it's easy to feel inferior when you think you don't measure up to someone's past partner's expectations, or even their image of an ideal companion. But comparisons are a trap. Jim Rohn wisely noted the big challenge is to become all that you have the possibility of becoming. Your focus should be on your unique journey, not someone else's. When you understand your value, you realize that you bring something to the table that no one else can. Lastly, understanding your value is an ongoing process. It's not something you realize once and for all, it's something you reinforce daily through your actions and mindset. How do you speak to yourself? Are you your own biggest advocate? Or do you let negative self-talk erode your confidence? How do you allow others to speak to you? Do you demand respect, or do you let disrespectful behavior slide? Every interaction, whether with yourself or others, is an opportunity to affirm your value. When you truly understand your value, you don't allow others to take advantage of you, because you know that your time, energy, and love are precious. Recognizing your worth empowers you to make better choices, build stronger relationships, and most importantly, treat yourself with the dignity you deserve. Setting clear boundaries is one of the most powerful acts of self-respect and self-preservation. It is a skill that protects your energy, preserves your dignity, and ensures that your relationships are built on mutual respect. Boundaries are not walls that keep people out, but guidelines that teach others how to treat you. Jim Rohn often spoke about the importance of discipline in achieving success, and boundaries are, in essence, a form of discipline, a way of ensuring that you don't compromise your well-being or values for the sake of others. The first step to setting clear boundaries is understanding what matters to you. What are your non-negotiables? What are the lines that, if crossed, leave you feeling disrespected, drained, or unworthy? These are deeply personal questions, and the answers vary from person to person. For some, it may be about time, protecting their schedule from being overrun by someone else's demands. For others, it may be about emotional space, refusing to tolerate manipulation, criticism, or negativity. Whatever your priorities, identifying them is crucial. Without clarity, it's impossible to set boundaries that truly serve you. Once you've identified your priorities, the next step is to communicate them clearly. Many people struggle with this because they fear confrontation or worry about offending others. But remember, boundaries are not about punishment, they're about clarity. When you communicate a boundary, you're simply letting others know what behavior is acceptable and what isn't. Jim Rohn often emphasized that success comes from taking responsibility for your life. And this principle applies here. It's your responsibility to articulate your needs. No one else can do it for you. When communicating boundaries, it's important to be both firm and kind. For example, if someone frequently interrupts your personal time with uninvited demands, you might say, "I value our relationship, but I need my evenings to recharge. Let's find a time during the day to talk." This approach is respectful but leaves no room for ambiguity. It's not about blaming the other person, it's about expressing your needs and holding your ground. Clarity, not aggression, is the key to effective boundaries. Of course, setting boundaries isn't just about telling others what you expect, it's about enforcing those expectations. This is often where people falter. It's one thing to say, "I won't tolerate disrespect," but it's another to follow through when someone crosses the line. If you don't enforce your boundaries, they lose their power, and others may begin to see them as empty threats. Enforcement doesn't have to be confrontational. It can be as simple as reminding the person of your boundary or walking away from a situation that violates it. The important thing is consistency. Each time you uphold a boundary, you reinforce your self-respect and teach others to respect you as well. Another essential aspect of setting boundaries is understanding that they will not always be well received. Some people may push back, criticize you, or even try to guilt you into relaxing your limits. This resistance often comes from those who benefited from your lack of boundaries in the past. Jim Rohn taught that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and setting boundaries can reveal who truly belongs in your circle. Those who respect your boundaries will adjust. Those who don't may not have your best interests at heart. It's also important to recognize that boundaries are not static, they can evolve over time. As you grow and your priorities change, your boundaries may need to shift as well. For instance, the boundaries you set in a new relationship might be different from those you maintain in a long-term partnership. Similarly, the boundaries you set at work may change as you gain experience or take on new responsibilities. Regularly reassessing your boundaries ensures that they continue to reflect your needs and values. One of the biggest misconceptions about boundaries is that they are selfish or hurtful. This belief often stems from societal conditioning, particularly for those who were taught to prioritize others' needs above their own. But the truth is, boundaries are an act of kindness, not just to yourself, but to others as well. When you set boundaries, you create a framework for healthy, honest relationships. You prevent resentment from building, and you give others the opportunity to interact with you in a way that fosters mutual respect. It's also worth noting that boundaries are not just for other people, they're for yourself too. Sometimes we need to set limits on our own behavior to protect our well-being. For example, you might set a boundary around how much time you spend on social media or how often you engage in activities that drain your energy. These self-imposed boundaries are just as important as the ones you set with others, because they help you stay aligned with your goals and values. Boundaries also play a crucial role in protecting your emotional energy. Every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you're saying no to something that does. Jim Rohn often reminded us to focus on what truly matters, and boundaries are a tool to help you do just that. They allow you to prioritize the people and activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, rather than being pulled in 100 different directions by other people's demands. Lastly, setting boundaries requires courage. It's not always easy to say no, to stand up for yourself, or to walk away from situations that don't honor your needs. But courage is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. Each time you set and enforce a boundary, you're not just protecting your present self, you're also paving the way for a future where respect, balance, and authenticity are the norm in your relationships. Life has a way of presenting lessons in the form of challenges, setbacks, and even pain. When someone uses you, it can be a deeply disheartening experience. But within that pain lies an opportunity for growth. Learning from the experience is how you transform a difficult situation into a stepping stone toward a better future. Jim Rohn often said, "Don't let your learning lead to knowledge, let your learning lead to action." This wisdom reminds us that lessons should not merely be understood, but applied to create meaningful change. The first step in learning from any experience is reflection. When you feel that someone has used you, take a moment to step back and analyze the situation. Ask yourself, what exactly happened? What choices did I make that led to this outcome? This is not about assigning blame to yourself, but about gaining clarity. Reflection helps you identify patterns. Perhaps this isn't the first time you found yourself in a similar situation. Understanding these patterns is crucial because it's often the behaviors we unconsciously repeat that leave us vulnerable to being used. Another key aspect of learning from the experience is acknowledging your feelings without judgment. It's natural to feel hurt, betrayed, or even angry when someone takes advantage of your kindness or generosity. These emotions, while painful, are important signals. They tell you what matters to you and where your boundaries may have been crossed. Suppressing these feelings might provide temporary relief, but it robs you of the opportunity to understand and process them. Jim Rohn emphasized the importance of taking responsibility for your emotions. And part of that responsibility is allowing yourself to feel them fully so that you can move forward with clarity. Once you've reflected on the situation and processed your emotions, the next step is identifying the lesson. Every experience, no matter how painful, carries a nugget of wisdom. Perhaps the lesson is about recognizing red flags earlier, or about the importance of setting and enforcing boundaries. Maybe it's about trusting your intuition, which you ignored in the hope that things would improve. Whatever the lesson, it becomes a tool you can use to navigate future relationships with greater awareness and confidence. Learning from the experience also involves taking accountability for your role in the situation. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for someone else's actions. It means examining where you might have overlooked signs or compromised your standards. Accountability is empowering because it shifts the focus from what was done to you to what you can do moving forward. As Jim Rohn wisely pointed out, if you don't like how things are, change it. You're not a tree. This mindset encourages you to take control of your life. rather than remaining a victim of circumstances. It's also important to recognize that growth often comes from discomfort. The pain of being used can serve as a catalyst for transformation if you allow it. Think of it as pruning a tree. While the process may seem harsh, it's necessary for the tree to grow stronger and bear more fruit. Similarly, the challenges you face are opportunities to shed old habits and beliefs that no longer serve you. This perspective doesn't diminish the hurt, but reframes it as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. Another vital part of learning from the experience is developing resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity stronger and wiser than before. When you've been used, it's easy to fall into a cycle of self-doubt or cynicism, believing that all relationships are destined to disappoint. But resilience requires a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on the pain, focus on the growth. Each experience adds to your arsenal of wisdom, making you better equipped to handle similar situations in the future. It's also essential to cultivate a sense of gratitude for the lessons learned, even if they came from a difficult experience. Gratitude doesn't mean you condone what happened, it means you appreciate the insight it provided. Jim Rohn often encouraged his audience to find the good in every situation, no matter how challenging. By practicing gratitude, you shift your focus from what you lost to what you gained: greater self-awareness, stronger boundaries, or a clearer understanding of what you deserve. As you learn from the experience, it's important to make adjustments in your behavior or mindset. Knowledge without action is futile. For instance, if you realize that you ignored red flags in a relationship, commit to paying closer attention to those signals in the future. If you discover that you often prioritize others' needs over your own, work on developing the confidence to say no. These adjustments don't have to be drastic. Small, consistent changes are often the most effective. As Jim Rohn said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. One of the most transformative aspects of learning from the experience is using it to help others. Sharing your story and the lessons you've learned can provide valuable insights to those facing similar challenges. This not only reinforces your own growth, but also creates a ripple effect of positive change. Jim Rohn believed in the power of mentorship and passing on knowledge, and by doing so, you turn a painful experience into a source of strength and inspiration for others. Finally, remember that learning from the experience is an ongoing process. Growth doesn't happen overnight, and healing isn't linear. There may be moments when you feel like you've moved on, only to be triggered by a memory or a similar situation. In those moments, revisit the lessons you've learned and remind yourself of how far you've come. Growth is a journey, not a destination, and each step you take brings you closer to becoming the person you were meant to be. Responsibility is one of the most transformative principles you can embrace in life. It's the acknowledgement that while you may not control every event that happens to you, you are fully in charge of your response to those events. Jim Rohn once said, "You must take personal responsibility. You cannot change the circumstances, the seasons, or the wind, but you can change yourself. This truth forms the foundation of personal growth, empowerment, and ultimately freedom." The power of responsibility lies in its ability to shift your mindset from being a victim of circumstances to becoming the architect of your destiny. The first step in harnessing the power of responsibility is understanding that your life is shaped by the choices you make. Every decision, no matter how small, contributes to the larger picture of your existence. If you find yourself in a situation where someone has taken advantage of you, the immediate reaction might be to blame the other person. While it's important to acknowledge the wrongdoing, it's equally crucial to examine your own role in the situation. Did you ignore warning signs? Did you allow boundaries to be crossed? Taking responsibility for your part isn't about self-blame, it's about reclaiming your power. When you recognize the influence of your choices, you begin to understand that you have the ability to make better decisions moving forward. Responsibility also means refusing to dwell on what you can't control. Life is unpredictable, and there will always be circumstances beyond your influence. People may act unfairly, situations may arise unexpectedly, and outcomes may not always align with your desires. However, focusing on these external factors only drains your energy and leaves you feeling helpless. The power of responsibility lies in redirecting your focus to what you can control: your actions, your attitude, and your mindset. Jim Rohn often emphasized the importance of taking ownership of your responses, stating, "It is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it that matters." This perspective empowers you to rise above challenges and take charge of your life. Another critical aspect of responsibility is accountability. It's easy to point fingers or make excuses when things go wrong, but doing so only perpetuates a cycle of inaction. Accountability means owning up to your mistakes, learning from them, and taking the necessary steps to improve. For example, if you find yourself repeatedly in relationships where you feel used, it may be time to evaluate your patterns and identify areas where you need to set stronger boundaries or raise your standards. Accountability isn't about dwelling on your shortcomings, it's about using them as opportunities for growth. When you hold yourself accountable, you take the first step toward breaking free from negative cycles and creating a more fulfilling life. Responsibility also requires self-discipline. It's not enough to recognize your role in shaping your life, you must also take consistent action to align your behavior with your goals and values. Jim Rohn famously said, "Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment." This principle applies to every area of life, from relationships to career to personal growth. If you want to cultivate healthier relationships, for instance, you need the discipline to communicate your boundaries, the courage to walk away from situations that don't serve you, and the resilience to keep striving for what you deserve. Responsibility without discipline is like a ship without a rudder. It may move, but it won't steer in the right direction. The power of responsibility extends beyond personal growth. It also enhances your relationships with others. When you take responsibility for your actions, you set an example of integrity and maturity. You become someone others can trust and respect. Conversely, blaming others or refusing to take ownership of your mistakes creates tension and erodes trust. By embracing responsibility, you foster healthier, more authentic connections with those around you. You demonstrate that you value accountability and expect the same from others, which helps establish mutual respect and understanding in your relationships. One of the most empowering aspects of responsibility is that it allows you to rewrite your story. Everyone faces setbacks and disappointments, but the way you respond to these challenges determines the narrative of your life. Will you allow a difficult experience to define you, or will you use it as a catalyst for growth? Responsibility gives you the power to choose the latter. It encourages you to view challenges as opportunities to learn, adapt, and become stronger. As Jim Rohn said, "Let others lead small lives, but not you." Let others argue over small things, but not you. Taking responsibility means refusing to be limited by your circumstances and instead striving for greatness. Another benefit of responsibility is the sense of empowerment it brings. When you accept that you are in charge of your life, you stop waiting for external factors to change and start creating the change you desire. This mindset is liberating because it shifts the focus from what you lack to what you can do. Instead of feeling powerless in the face of adversity, you recognize that you have the tools and resilience to overcome it. Responsibility is a reminder that while you may not have chosen your starting point, you have the ability to shape your destination. Responsibility also cultivates self-respect. When you take ownership of your life, you demonstrate to yourself that you are capable and worthy of making positive changes. This self-respect reinforces your confidence and helps you set higher standards for yourself and your relationships. It reminds you that you deserve to be treated with dignity and that you have the power to ensure that happens. Responsibility is an act of self-love. It's a commitment to your own growth and well-being. Lastly, responsibility is a lifelong practice. It's not something you achieve once, and for all, it's a mindset you cultivate daily. Each day presents new challenges, choices, and opportunities to take ownership of your life. By consistently practicing responsibility, you build a foundation of resilience, integrity, and empowerment that supports you in every aspect of your journey. Elevating your standards is one of the most transformative decisions you can make in life. Your standards determine the quality of your relationships, your success, and your overall sense of fulfillment. As Jim Rohn famously said, "Don't join an easy crowd, you won't grow. Go where the expectations and the demands to perform are high. This principle applies not just to the company you keep, but also to the standards you set for yourself. When you demand more from yourself and others, you create a life that reflects your true potential. The first step in elevating your standards is recognizing where they currently stand. Take an honest look at the various aspects of your life, your relationships, your career, your health, and your habits. Are you satisfied with what you see? If not, it's time to identify the areas where your standards may be too low. For example, you may find that you tolerate disrespect in relationships, procrastinate on important goals, or settle for mediocrity in your work. Acknowledging these areas is not about self-criticism, it's about becoming aware of where you have room to grow. Once you've identified areas for improvement, the next step is defining what elevated standards look like for you. This is a deeply personal process because your standards should align with your values and aspirations. For instance, if you value authenticity, you might set a standard of only engaging in relationships that are honest and transparent. If you value excellence, you might commit to giving your best effort in every task, no matter how small. Elevated standards are not about perfection, they're about striving for a higher level of integrity, effort, and self-respect in everything you do. Elevating your standards also requires a shift in mindset. You must believe that you are worthy of better relationships, better opportunities, and better outcomes. This belief is the foundation of higher standards, because you will never demand more from life if you don't think you deserve it. Jim Rohn often emphasized the importance of self-worth, stating, the stronger your self-worth, the stronger your standards. If you struggle with self-doubt or feelings of unworthiness, start by reminding yourself that you are capable of growth and improvement. Surround yourself with people and influences that reinforce this belief. And take small steps each day to build your confidence. Another key aspect of elevating your standards is learning to say no. When you raise your standards, you inevitably encounter situations, opportunities, and relationships that no longer align with your new expectations. Saying no to these things is not always easy, especially if you've been conditioned to please others or avoid conflict. However, every time you say no to something that doesn't meet your standards, you create space for something better. As Jim Rohn wisely observed, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. Saying no is a way of changing your direction toward a life that reflects your highest values and aspirations. Elevating your standards also means embracing discipline. It's not enough to decide that you want better, you must also commit to the actions that will bring about change. Discipline is what bridges the gap between intention and achievement. For example, if you decide to raise your standards in health, you might commit to regular exercise, healthier eating, and adequate rest. If you decide to elevate your standards in your career, you might invest in professional development, seek mentorship, or pursue challenging opportunities. Discipline requires consistency, and while it may be uncomfortable at times, the rewards far outweigh the effort. Another important element of elevating your standards is surrounding yourself with people who inspire and challenge you. Jim Rohn famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." If the people around you settle for mediocrity, it becomes all too easy to lower your own standards to match theirs. Conversely, if you surround yourself with individuals who strive for excellence, you are more likely to do the same. Seek out mentors, friends, and colleagues who encourage you to be your best self and hold you accountable to your goals. Elevating your standards also involves letting go of limiting beliefs. These are the internal narratives that tell you why you can't achieve more or why you don't deserve better. Common limiting beliefs include, "I'm not good enough, I don't have the resources," or "it's too late to change." These thoughts are not facts, they are stories you've told yourself, often based on past experiences or societal conditioning. To elevate your standards, you must challenge these beliefs and replace them with empowering ones. Remind yourself that growth is always possible, and that every step you take toward higher standards brings you closer to your potential. One of the most significant benefits of elevating your standards is the ripple effect it creates. When you demand more from yourself, you naturally inspire others to do the same. Your actions set an example for those around you, showing them what is possible when you commit to growth and excellence. This ripple effect extends to every area of your life. from your relationships to your work to your community. By elevating your standards, you not only improve your own life, but also contribute to a culture of higher expectations and mutual respect. Lastly, elevating your standards requires patience and persistence. Change doesn't happen overnight, and there will be moments when you feel tempted to revert to old habits or settle for less. In these moments, remind yourself of why you chose to raise your standards in the first place. Visualize the life you want to create and the person you want to become. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small, and use it as fuel to keep moving forward. Life is a journey of growth, self-discovery, and empowerment. Each moment offers an opportunity to rise above challenges, redefine your values, and commit to a higher standard of living. The power lies within you, your ability to understand your worth, set clear boundaries, learn from every experience, embrace responsibility, and elevate your standards. These principles are the building blocks of a life rooted in strength, dignity, and purpose. When you take charge of your life and align your actions with your highest ideals, you not only transform your circumstances, but also inspire others to do the same. Growth is not a destination, it's a continuous journey. As you walk this path, remember that every challenge is a lesson. Every setback is a stepping stone. And every decision to honor your values strengthens the foundation of the extraordinary life you are building. Take this wisdom forward. Choose to live with intention, embrace your power, and create the life you truly deserve. Let today be the day you commit to becoming the best version of yourself, for it is in that commitment that true transformation begins.